Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Al24 Midnight News coming to you live, always from the capital Algiers. And these are tonight's top stories. The death toll from the Johannesburg fire has risen to 74 dead and dozens injured. President Ramaphosa describes the incident as a great tragedy, and the Algerian President Mr. Dimitri Peskov offers condolences expressing Algeria's solidarity with the families of the victims. As political forces in Niamey welcome the Algerian move, Algeria officially hands over President's initiative to resolve Niger crisis, and US opened talks with the Algerian counterparts to discuss this initiative. In the Middle East, occupation forces detained 17 Palestinians from the West Bank. And Palestinian presidency spokesman stated that the daily Zionist violation, including the raids into Palestinian cities, aims to detonate the situation and drag it into the realm of violence and escalation. With the Russian-Turkish summit to discuss the initiative next Monday, new hopes for reviving the grain deal agreements from the Black Sea, and with financial support from Qatar, Moscow proposes an alternative to ship grain via Turkey to poor countries. Hello again and welcome. Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune has extended his condolences to his South African counterpart Cyril Ramaphosa following the fire that left many people dead and wounded in Johannesburg. In his message, President Tebboune expressed the sincere solidarity of the Algerian people with the families of the victims in these painful circumstances, wishing a speedy recovery for the wounded. Officials in South Africa have said that at least 73 people have died after the fire floors building caught fire in Johannesburg. Emergency services official has earlier warned that the death toll could rise as they continue to search the scene more than 12 hours after the blaze broke out.
Omar is one of the luckiest who survived the deadly blaze, but sorrow was clearly shown on his face. On his escape way, there were dozens who lost their lives. Among them was his sister.
And I broke the window and just also to try to protect myself. And when I fell down, then the people, they just explaining that I'm taking 3 hours to come to get up because I was already like I'm dead. I was trying to be strong like a man, but I'm trying my best. Yeah, until now, I'm still alive.
At the devastating scene, the outcries were so intense, and nearby body bags lining up outside. It is one of South Africa's worst tragedies in living memory.
This is unprecedented. Johannesburg has never had an incident like this where so many people die as a result of a fire in the center of the city. So this is tragic.
The building, which belongs to the city of Johannesburg, was once used as a court during the apartheid era. Witnesses say as many as 200 people or more may have been living in the building. Rescuers rush to save any survivor.
We responded to this incident around 1:30 this morning, where a 5-story building caught fire. And in the process, we came in to evacuate the people, and we started our firefighting operation. In the process, we managed to evacuate about a number of people who were safely outside, but unfortunately, we recovered about 73 bodies, and also about 52 people were treated for minor injuries and also treated for smoke inhalation.
The cause of the blaze at the fire-hit story building hasn't been confirmed yet. The use of a candle to keep warm in the winter cold is being blamed for the fire.
The African Union decided to suspend Gabon's membership after the coup that overthrew President Ali Bongo until restoring constitutional order. in the country. The African Union Peace and Security Council said in a statement that the Union decided on Thursday, after a meeting to discuss developments in the situation in Gabon, that it decided to suspend Gabon's participation in all its activities, organizations and institutions. The head of the ECOWAS, Bola Tinubu, on Thursday suggested a 9-month transitional back to democracy. The Economic Community of the West African States has imposed sanctions on Niger after troops ousted President Mohamed Bazoum last July. The bloc is also threatening military intervention if talks fail to restore civilian rule.
Of Bazoum.
The army in Gabon pledged on Thursday to respect the state's internal and external obligations after the coup. The spokesperson for the Transitional and Committee confirmed that the committee will respect all of the Gabon's internal and external obligations in the wake of the coup that overthrew President Ali Bongo. Additionally, General Brice Oligui Nguema will be sworn in as transitional president before the Constitutional Court on Monday.
General de Brigade Oligui Nguema Brice.
General Brice Oligui Nguema wants to reassure all donors and partners in the development, in addition to the state's creditors, that all measures will be taken to ensure the fulfillment of the internal and external commitments.
European Union's foreign policy chief Joseph Borrell told reporters on Thursday that there were no plans to evacuate EU citizens from Gabon from now, and stated that the coup in the African country followed a general election that was full of wrongdoings. His remark came during the EU foreign ministers' meeting in Toledo, Spain on Thursday, where they expressed deep concern at the growing number of military coups across Africa.
De la République.
En Gabón no hay por el momento ninguna.
In Gabon, there are no evacuation plans for the moment. The situation is calm. We do not see any risk of a situation which could cause danger. There are about 10,000 European citizens in Gabon, but no country has expressed any concern.
Europeos en Gabón, pero ningún país ha manifestado preocupación.
In the same line of thoughts, the European Union aims to follow the footsteps of the West African regional body ECOWAS and slap the same sanctions on a military council that seized power in Niger several weeks ago. As EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell stated when he was asked about the coup in Gabon, that the top diplomat added the EU would react the same to Gabon as it did to Niger.
So the only way is.
The ministers reiterated our will to support African solution for African problems. And it means that we will support ECOWAS. We have expressed this will from the first moment of the coup. It's up to them to take initiatives and decisions in order to counter this military coup. And we will follow, trying to implement the same kind of sanctions that they have decided. We are moving forward for an autonomous sanctions regime to take measures against the putschists. Work has already started, and tomorrow the Foreign Affairs Ministers will advance on that.
Algeria's Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf formally presented President Tebboune initiative for resolving the crisis in Niger to the Nigerian ambassador to Algeria, along with ambassadors from ECOWAS member states Senegal, Côte d'Ivoire, and Guinea-Bissau. Minister Attaf discussed the initiative's key elements, foundation, and objectives, emphasizing Algeria's commitment to collaborate closely with ECOWAS for a peaceful political resolution and to prevent the use of force. This collaboration aims to safeguard peace, security, and stability in Niger and the entire region. Also, Mr. Ahmed Attaf, in the company of the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, discussed the ongoing crisis in Niger and ways to enhance cooperation between Algeria and the United States for a political solution. The discussions revolved, or rather revolved around President Tebboun's initiative, which aims to address the crisis comprehensively through a participatory approach involving various stakeholders from internal to regional and international levels. United Nations sanctions in Mali will end on Thursday after Russia rejected a renewal of a regime that targeted anyone violating or obstructing 2015 peace deal, hindering aid delivery and committing rights abuses or recruiting child soldiers. 13 Security Council members supported the draft resolution submitted by France and the UAE, while China abstained from voting. Russian UN ambassador made clear that Russia would not discuss the issue any further after the two votes on Wednesday.
The use of the Council's authority to impose sanctions that do not suit the state of Mali undermines cooperation between Bamako and the United Nations in light of reducing the MINUSMA mission and its withdrawal, which raises great concerns. Therefore, the Russian Federation cannot support the draft resolution. We urge our colleagues in the Council to show wisdom and to provide an alternative program that takes into consideration the opinions of the African countries. We hope that the members deal in their projects which they will propose in the future with a greater deal of wisdom and pragmatism to avoid unnecessary conflicts within the Security Council.
Back to the local matter, Algerian Foreign Minister Mr. Ahmed Attaf described the referral of judicial proceedings against retired Major General Khaled Nazar by the Swiss Public Prosecutor's Office to the Federal Criminal Court as unacceptable, calling it an interference with the political choices of an independent and sovereign state. This came in a phone call between the Minister of Foreign Affairs Ahmed Attaf and his Swiss counterpart Ignacio Cassis, tackling the latest developments in the case. A statement by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs asserted that the issue had reached an unacceptable level and that Algeria government determined to draw conclusions. The statement of the head of diplomacy also expressed hope in making efforts to avoid any undesirable and irreversible path caused by the issue.
The independence of the judiciary does not justify irresponsibility. Any judicial system cannot give itself the absolute right to judge the policies of an independent and sovereign state. From the beginning of this case, Algeria's conviction has been strengthened over time that Swiss justice has irreverently provided a platform for terrorists, their allies and supporters to try to obliterate our country's brave struggle against terrorism and tarnish the image and memory of those who fell martyrs while fighting this scourge. Through the same disregard, the Swiss justice is retrospectively interpreting our country's history during the 90s through outrageous and groundless accusations, inappropriate and inadequate comparisons through blatant misinterpretations that are discredited.
Mr. Ahmed Attaf, the Algerian Foreign Minister, described the content of the judicial proceedings against the retired Major General to be misinterpretation of history based on outrageous and unstructured accusations.
The international community as a whole recognizes Algeria's heroic struggle, which it led alone against terrorism during the 90s, and that our country's role and experience in this area have been widely supported and commended at regional and international levels.
Mr. Ahmed Attaf also recalls Algeria's heroic struggle against terrorism as recognized by the entire international community.
Algeria considers unacceptable that the Swiss justice gives itself the right to rule on the political choices of an independent and sovereign state in matters related to national security. This issue has reached an unacceptable and intolerable threshold. The Algerian government is fully determined to draw all conclusions, including those that are far from being desired in the future of Algerian-Swiss relations, while expressing hope to pool all efforts to avoid that relations between Algeria and Switzerland take an undesirable and irreversible turn.
In Africa, still on the International Day of Enforced Disappearance, Sahrawi human rights activists urge Sahrawi individuals in occupied territories to join a solidarity campaign. The campaign calls for immediate release of Sahrawi civilian prisoners and disclosure of the status of missing Sahrawi individuals within the Moroccan occupation. The Sahrawi Human Rights Committee implored international human rights organizations to pursue to pressure Morocco to provide information on missing Sahrawis and to investigate crimes like torture, kidnapping, and murder.
We urgently call on international organizations defending human rights and all committees, specialized mechanisms and working groups of the United Nations specialized in the field of human rights to work to force Morocco to provide information about missing and forcibly disappeared Sahrawis, and to investigate crimes of torture, murder, kidnapping, and other crimes committed.
Occupation forces in Palestine detained on Thursday 17 Palestinians from the occupied West Bank. Some of them are former prisoners. Earlier on Wednesday, a Palestinian child was killed after he was shot by occupation police in Al-Quds, who opened fire on the 14-year-old called Khaled, causing him serious injuries and leaving him bleed to death. Palestinian presidency spokesman Nabil Abu Rudaina said that the daily Zionist violations on the Palestinian people, including the raids into Palestinian cities and hundreds of arrests, aim to detonate the situation and drag it into more violence and escalation. Abu Rudaina added in a statement that the Zionist occupation government bears full responsibility for the dangerous situation, stressing that no issue in the Middle East will be resolved without a just solution to the Palestinian cause.
Zionist occupation bears full responsibility for the dangerous situation. Security and stability will not be achieved without the Palestinian people obtaining their rights, recognized by international legitimacy. And no issue in the Middle East will be resolved without a just solution for the Palestinian cause. The international community, especially the US administration, must be well aware that what the Zionist occupation is doing in terms of killing, arresting, raids on holy places, and terrorizing settlers will have very serious repercussions for everyone.
In Asia now, the United Nations Security Council voted to extend Lebanon's peacekeeping mission for another year. The vote came after a compromise was reached between France and the United Nations, or rather United States, on language about the freedom of movement of UN troops. Lebanon's envoy to the Security Council described the resolution as not fully reflecting Lebanon's concerns and did not take into account the specificity of the current reality.
وبكل أسف لم يعكس مشاغل لبنان بصورة كاملة.
Unfortunately, the text did not reflect all of our concerns in their whole picture. Unfortunately, this is a ticket that failed to take into consideration the particular private characteristic of the situation. And when I talk about this particularity, I'm not saying that there are certain groups or individuals in Lebanon denouncing and rejecting this resolution, whereas others approve it. This particularity is sovereignty.
ترتضي به. الخصوصية هي السيادة.
To Europe now, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov considered that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's formula for a settlement in Ukraine was unacceptable and doomed to failure. Lavrov, during a press conference with his Turkish counterpart Hakan Fidan in Moscow on Thursday, clarified that it is very impossible to build up on Zelensky's initiative to launch a peace process in Ukraine.
We spoke, of course, in details about the situation in and around Ukraine, including initiatives that are designed to promote the unacceptable, ultimate and predeterminedly disastrous so-called Zelensky peace formula. We explained why it is impossible to rely on the efforts that are being made in this direction.
Now, in a related matter, Russian and Turkish presidents are expected to meet in Russia on September 4 to primarily discuss Black Sea grain exports as Ankara speeds up efforts to revive a key agreement that allowed Ukrainian grain to reach world markets. More in this report.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and his Turkish counterpart Hakan Fidan held talks in Moscow on Thursday ahead of a summit bringing together Russian and Turkish presidents Vladimir Putin and Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Russia.
Taking into consideration that the Presidents Putin and Erdogan are preparing for the next summit, I think we can look in detail into the issues they would be discussing.
The revival of the vital grain deal will top the agenda of the expected meeting between Turkish and Russian presidents in Sochi on September 4. During the Thursday meeting, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan stated that a new proposal prepared by the UN could lay the basis for the revival of the deal, while considering Russian demands as very important.
Russia has demands for uninterrupted exports of its own grains and fertilizer. We confirmed the importance of fulfilling of those. United Nations had prepared a new proposal package with the help of our country's heavy efforts and contribution. We think that this will be a suitable base for revival of the initiative.
However, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated that the grain deal is not back on the table, but the Kremlin has drawn Turkey's attention to what the West needs to do if it wants to bring the initiative back.
As soon as measures are taken, not the measures on talks over the Russian part of the Black Sea deal, but the measures to solve all those issues that have remained unfulfilled, despite the promises of the UN Secretary General, whose efforts we also appreciate. As soon as the talks turn into concrete decisions, we will be ready to resume the Ukrainian part of the grain deal on the same day.
Russia quit the year-old deal in July, complaining in particular that Western sanctions were impeding its own exports of grain and fertilizers, in violation of a memorandum signed in parallel with the Black Sea grain deal.
The Kremlin spokesperson Dimitri Peskov has said that the allegations leveled by the head of the Ukrainian Security Council against Moscow, accusing it of causing famine in Africa, are false and groundless, stressing that his country adopts a responsible position despite the collapse of the grain export deal through the Black Sea.
The accusations are completely false, groundless, and a deliberate distortion of facts. I mean, the shortage of grains and foodstuffs in the African continent is linked to our country. It is not the case. On the contrary, and as it is well known, Russia renewed several times the so-called grain deal. And now Russia is taking a responsible position despite specific difficulties created by the European Union and the United States regarding the illegitimate bans imposed on our suppliers.
Grant Shapps has been appointed as UK's new defence minister, as announced by British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak during a mini reshuffle at the top of the government. The appointment comes after Ben Wallace's resignation announcement last month. Now, in Latin America, Bolivia faces concerns of declining gas reserves, its major income source. Exploration projects for new natural gas fields have been lacking, leading to a decrease in production since 2014. State oil company held Armin highlighted that necessity to invest in exploration to rebuild gas reserves. Bolivia's President Luis Arce acknowledged that the decline in gas production, stressing the government's commitment to exploration to restore reserves and increase production capacity.
There has been a decline in the gas production since 2014, more or less. It has unfortunately been falling and has hit rock bottom. We, as the national government, we're telling you this for the sake of your tranquility, that we're investigating a lot in exploration to reconstruct the gas reserves. We have lost a lot of gas reserves during this time span. We haven't been able to restore them, and the country does not have more production capacity.
Now in sport, the draw for the 2023-24 UEFA Champions League has been completed in Monaco, with some eye-catching group stage battles on the horizon in the coming weeks. Premier League club Newcastle back to the top stage for the first time in 2 decades, and they have been paired with Paris Saint-Germain, Borussia Dortmund and AC Milan in the Group F. City titles defenders includes Group G battles with Leipzig, and Real Madrid will be playing the first place against Italian champions Napoli, where Barcelona, the Spain champions, they will face Portuguese side Porto.
Celtic. If you're a travelling fan, you're really going to enjoy yourself in Group F, because there are some iconic arenas in that one, aren't there? Paris Saint-Germain, Borussia Dortmund, AC Milan and Newcastle United. Group G, it's Manchester City, the champions, Leipzig, Crvena Zvezda and Young Boys. And in Group H, it's Barcelona, Porto, Shakhtar Donetsk and...
Watch the road to this end. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for taking part with us in this late hour. For more updates, you can follow our social media platform. And all I can say at the end, take care of yourself. Good night and have a blessed Friday.